What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Girl Who Talks Sports with me, Sam Cardona, and thank you guys all for listening today. To everybody on the podcast apps, hello. To everybody on YouTube, hello. If you guys didn't know, the show is officially on YouTube. You can watch full-length episodes at the same thing you can do when you listen to it on any podcast app that you listen to. But it is a recording of me doing the episode instead, so if you want to watch and listen instead of just listening, you have the opportunity to do that. The YouTube channel is called The Girl Who Talks Sports, and if you guys want to give it a subscribe or like any of the videos that I posted or any of that good stuff, you are more than welcome to do so. You can also go on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever it is that you get your podcasts, subscribe, follow, and leave an Apple Podcast review, which is very helpful to me and the podcast if you do so. So thank you to anybody who has, and thank you to anybody who will. And that is our plugs. Oh, and also don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter. TGWTS Podcast is the @ follow for updates on the podcast or clips, videos, funny tweets, some memes. It's a good time. So give the Twitter a follow. And, guys, we have an interesting show lined up today. We don't have a lot to discuss, but we have important things to discuss. So quality over quantity, as many people say. So we're going to get into that. Before we do, I hope everybody had a lovely 4th of July weekend. I don't know about other people. However, here in New York City, fireworks have been going up nonstop, and I talked about it last week actually briefly, saying that it was extremely annoying, and it is, and it was 4th of July. Even before the sun even went down, it was insane how many fireworks were going off, but it actually sounded like a war zone, and I, as someone obviously who has never been in war, I had no idea until I was in my neighbor's backyard and my neighbor walked out and he said, who is a veteran and military member, "This sounds like a war zone out here." So it is correct to assume it sounded like a war zone outside. I was perplexed. I've never experienced anything like that in my life. I watched fireworks up in the sky for hours. For hours it went on. At least 3 hours I sat in the backyard just watched the fireworks. Thank God, my dog passed away last year, and she was terrified of fireworks, but I thank God that she was not around for this, because she would have been a nervous wreck. So I can only imagine what people with dogs were actually experiencing during that, because it was, it must have been awful. But regardless, it's over now. The fireworks seem to have stopped. I haven't heard them in like a day, so hopefully people have finally run out of their fireworks. And otherwise, I hope everybody had a safe and happy 4th of July weekend this past weekend. I know I did. I had a nice, relaxing time. But also, on another note, which is a shameless plug, but before we get into our stories for today, so this episode will be coming out tomorrow on July 8th. So technically, as you guys are listening to this, tomorrow, the 9th, is my birthday. And last year, I remember I didn't put out an episode because it fell like me having to work and do everything for the podcast fell on my birthday, and I decided not to do anything. So I didn't put out an episode last year because I was just like, no, it's my birthday, I'm not doing anything. But this year, I am putting it together on the 7th and putting it out on the 8th, and so the 9th is my birthday. If you guys want to wish me happy birthday, my DMs are open on Twitter. I love getting wished happy birthday. I don't know if that makes me selfish or not. But anyway, enough of my rambling. Let's get into the things that we have to talk about today for the podcast episode. So, first things first. This is something that it's in recent news that the Washington Redskins will officially, or are in negotiations right now, for changing their team name because, if people didn't know, the word Redskins is actually an ethnic slur against Native Americans. And they have been trying to change this name for decades at this point. I believe that they started like back in the 70s. They said that like this name needed to be changed. And now, with the climate and everything going on in the world, they are finally in negotiations to discuss the changing of this name. And obviously, the Redskins are not the only team with a native theme to their team name and their team gear and their whole franchise, basically. The other big one that is probably going to have to get changed, especially after the Redskins decide to change their name, is going to be the Cleveland Indians. And that's because Indians technically is not the term for Native Americans, because Indians are people who are from India, and Native Americans are not from India, therefore they are not Indians. But obviously, with history and Christopher Columbus believing that he had reached India and not America, they were called Indians, which is not correct. So they are going to be probably right behind the Washington Redskins in changing the name of their team. I mean, there's also teams like the Braves, teams like the Chiefs, who might eventually have to also, but the Redskins is number one on the list because the word Redskin is an ethnic slur to Native Americans. So like I said, they've been trying to change this name since the 70s. And the owner right now, Dan Snyder, back in 2013, people have digged up and discovered, dug up. I don't know how to, my grammar's so bad, that people have dug up of Dan Snyder, and he said about 2013, so only a few years ago, that he said that he would never ever change the name of this team. And obviously that is not the case anymore, so him changing and going towards actually changing the name is probably the better direction to be going, instead of saying like, yeah, I'm going to change the name and then never changing it. So that's good that they are thinking about changing it, but the fact that he did say it in the past is pretty problematic, because his mindset probably is that he doesn't want to change the name, but he's only doing it because of money purposes. And when I talk about money purposes, it's because a lot of big investors and sponsors of this team are saying that they are pulling out of this franchise if this name doesn't get changed. So, first things first, though, in terms of distributors, I read that Walmart and Target are both two stores who are, depending on where you are in the world, obviously, if you live in Washington, D.C., your Walmart or Target is going to have Washington Redskins gear. Maybe in the tri-state area as well. However, like, here in New York, we don't have that, but we might get, like, Eagles gear, like, somewhere in the mix sometimes, depending. But they have said that they will not be selling anything with the Redskins logo, with the Redskins name. None of that stuff is going to be basically sold in any of these stores, I'm assuming, until the name is changed. Also, Nike and Pepsi are both companies that have said that they are not going to be a part of the Washington Redskins unless the name gets changed, which are big deals because Nike obviously provides gear, and I think their jerseys, right? NFL jerseys are all Nike. And Pepsi & Co., for people who are going to games, Pepsi is sold in the stadiums, and Pepsi is not just the soda. I mean, there's a lot of things involved in the company of Pepsi. They sell a lot more things. So those two things are very important to the franchise. So this is what's pushing them mainly to change the name of this team. Like I said, Braves and Chiefs are definitely down the line probably going to end up getting changed at some point, although I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. But it's mostly the theme of it all. The theme of the Chiefs, people who are Chiefs fans might wear the headdress that Native Americans might wear as a chief or something along those lines, and unfortunately that's cultural appropriation because they're not doing it to celebrate the Native American heritage. They're doing it to support their team, but in the wrong way. So the whole thing with that and the Chiefs and the Braves is not as bad, obviously, as the Washington Redskins, but again, like I said, down the line, they probably will end up getting changed or modified in some way. So that is that. There are some names that have been suggested for the Washington Redskins that I read on CBS Sports. I don't know where they got these names from. I don't know if people submitted it to them or if they just kind of perused maybe Twitter or social media in which people were offering suggestions. But I found a few names that possibly the Redskins may or may not end up getting at some point in time. Also, it's probably very what's the word? It's probably not going to happen before week 1. This is a very short amount of time, and even Andrew Brandt, who has worked in I believe he worked with the Packers, and he's just kind of been in the NFL atmosphere for quite some time. He said that it would have to be some insane effort to actually get this done before week 1 of the season, if the season is happening, and that seems plausible to me, honestly. I don't know what kind of process is enclosed in all of this. I'm sure that there's a lot of things that need to be done in order to get this solidified and finished. So maybe the NFL will have the Washington Redskins for 1 more year, and then by next year it'll be finished, but I'm not entirely sure. But these are the names that I saw that I thought were actually pretty good as well, from this CBS Sports website. They had said the Red Hawks, and the Red Hawks sound pretty good. I mean, the thing is, the red, that would have to be, I don't know if they want to keep the word red or not, because there was also Red Tails, which is good. They're both good names, but I don't know if they're trying to stick with the red theme that they have, or if they're just going to completely start new and start from scratch. I mean, I like Red Hawks. I like Red Tails. It's not bad. But they also had a few here which I thought were a little bit better than that, which include Bravehearts, Warriors, and Renegades. What I had read about Renegades is that if they want to keep the R instead of just the red, if they want to keep R in their name, Renegades is a pretty good name. Bravehearts I like. Washington Bravehearts I think sounds really cool. And I think that there's a lot of potential there, but that's personally just my opinion. Nobody listens to me, so I don't know. But the thing that I think they're going to do is stick with either an R or a red. But again, I don't know if they're thinking about doing that or if they want to just completely start from scratch. There is no timeline. Nobody has said anything. Nobody has been like, okay, well, we're leaning more towards this or we're doing that. It just came out and said that they're talking about changing the name, and that's about it. There's been no other thing from front office or from Dan Snyder himself or from players or anything along those lines, not that I have seen. So that is what's going on with this whole name changing situation. We'll definitely keep up with it. Once we get our new name, they'll probably put out a new logo as well and change the whole dynamic of the team. I mean, people who have been Redskins fans their whole lives obviously have been Redskins, or they have gear with Redskins on it, but it's been a long time coming, for sure. So, and this name was created like in the 30s. Like, this was a totally different time, almost 100 years ago, that this name was created. So, maybe change isn't a bad thing. All right, let's get into our next topic here, which is Patrick Mahomes. And this broke 2 days ago or yesterday. I'm not entirely sure what day it came out. But Patrick Mahomes just got paid. Oh my God. It is insane. So if you didn't hear yet, Patrick Mahomes has signed a 10-year deal with the Chiefs. 10 years. And the money, it started at people, the rumors were circulating that it was 400, and then it went up to 450, and then it came out that it was $503 million. $500 million this guy is getting over the next 10 years. And it's blowing my mind. It's insane. This is the largest sports contract in not football history, but sports history. There's never been a contract this big in the entirety of sports, ever. And that just, it's insane how crazy that is. Just, this kid, obviously, like I said, my birthday is in 2 days or tomorrow, and I'm turning 24. Patrick Mahomes is 24. And I am making not $500 million. I mean, technically, if you break it down, he's making $50 million a year. And that's just absolutely just blowing my mind. The guarantees are for $141.4 million, and that's if he gets injured. Like, tomorrow, he gets $141 million. Which obviously is a lot of money, but compared to $503 million is like nothing. This is just something so crazy, and there's a lot of more things about the contract coming out in terms of guarantee mechanisms and all this other stuff, and I'm trying to make sense of it, and it's just completely going in one ear and out the other. It is just, there's too much going on. Even a lot of people who are professionals are having a hard time breaking it down. I've read an explanation and I'm still not getting it. But besides the point, I think mostly what people need to know is the fact that Patrick Mahomes is rolling in it. Just absolutely. The fact that this guy is my age and he's getting this much money is perplexing to me. And I wish that I had invested myself in sports more. But even still, as a woman, would not be making this much money. There's been a lot of really funny tweets to come out of it, so I'm going to read you a couple. One of them is Geoff Schwartz. He said, after the Patriots, after the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, he said the Chiefs should offer Mahomes a 10-year deal. Not sure if he'd take that, but what if the Chiefs offered him 10 for $400 million? With a bunch of laughing, crying emojis. And that was February 3rd, 2020. A simpler time. And then he said, day after the Super Bowl, nailed it the other day. Which, honestly, he did. He totally did. Can you, like, imagine just predicting the largest sports contract in history? That's insane. Another one, which I thought was very, very, very funny, is that the Reddit college football Twitter, I guess, tweeted the Texas Alumni Association is in Mahomes's inbox, like, and it's a picture of Bernie Sanders saying, "I'm once again asking for your financial support," and that in and of itself is hilarious. But the Texas Tech Alumni Association then quoted that tweet and said, "Already checked, no valid email address on file, time to slide into those DMs, I guess." Because if your alumnus is making that much money, I would be asking for money from them too. 100%. And my college constantly calls me, emails me, asking for money, and I'm like, I don't have enough money to give you anything. Stop asking me for money. But Patrick Mahomes really doesn't have an excuse here not to offer money to his alumni association. Not that he has to, obviously, but I thought that was very funny. And a story that is incorporated with this whole incredible contract is that a Kansas City liquor store basically broke the news before Adam Schefter had the chance to. So, there was a liquor store in Kansas City called Plaza Liquor, and a woman named Katie Camlin was working that day, and she saw a Chiefs front office employee come into the liquor store and buy 6 bottles of Dom Perignon. And that's a type of champagne, which goes for, depending on what type you're getting, approximately $200 a bottle. So the guy's dropping $1,200 on champagne, so obviously it was a big deal. And she had inquired about it, and he's like, "Oh, like, it's a big deal, blah 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 blah." And she said it's not. She was like, I think it might be Mahomes. Like, she was tweeting about all of this, and she basically broke the news before Adam Schefter had the chance to. Obviously, she didn't have any of the details, but she basically told the public that it was coming. And Schefter even messaged her and said, "Well done. Keep me posted the next time some Chiefs employee buys 6 bottles of bubbly. Be well and stay healthy." Which is just so cool. I mean, I would cry. But I actually went onto the girl's Twitter because I was like, oh, maybe I can, she seems like an easy person to reach out to. Let me see if I can talk to her, maybe get something to put on the podcast. And she had just posted a video thread of her saying that a lot of media is reaching out to her. She's trying to not really answer a lot of those messages. So she was just kind of like, she's like, don't feel bad if I'm not answering you, yada, yada, yada. So I was like, I understand and I respect her privacy, so I didn't bother to message her about it. But I thought that this was just the craziest thing. It's so cool. And obviously, when Andy Reid heard about this news, he said that he put on his best Tommy Bahama shirt for the occasion, which is chef's kiss. Fantastic. I love Andy Reid. Andy Reid deserves everything that is given to him. I love him so much. And his Hawaiian shirts. I don't think the man owns a dress shirt, or does he own a suit? I don't know. But the man wears Hawaiian shirts with such elegance, and I love him so much for it. So he gave Patrick, he put on his best Tommy Bahama shirt for Patrick and this legendary contract just for him, and that's just really meaningful, I think. In Andy Reid's world, that is just a gesture of absolute, just pure congratulatoriness. I don't even think that's a word. But, so, Patrick Mahomes making history, 24 years old, just an insane amount of money. I am just absolutely blown away. It's crazy. All right, let's get into our segments for today. And let's do our first segment of the show and my favorite segment on the show, Tea Time. Tea Time is my favorite segment on the show because we delve into the hot, steamy gossip of the sports world. And this week, it is some tea that is very strange and out of the blue and weird, but it has to be discussed. So, a photograph of Green Bay's running back Aaron Jones surfaced the other day of him playing his PlayStation 4 in the lobby of a hospital where his girlfriend was in labor giving birth to their child. Now, there's a lot of things happening within this photograph that was posted by Aaron Jones' girlfriend. And there's a lot of different sides here, but first things first, when I will not lie, when I first saw this picture, I was like, oh my god, what is this man doing? Really? You're playing video games while your girlfriend is in labor? And obviously, a lot of people like myself had the same sort of reaction to it. So, a WNBA player, Kelsey Plum, tweeted, and I don't know if she tweeted out the picture or she quoted the tweet. I believe I saw it from Bleacher Report. They were the ones that put it out there. She quoted the tweet or posted the picture again and said, trash. And so that sparked a little bit of a scuffle on the social medias. So Aaron Jones replied to this and said, "That's wild. She told me to bring the game with me, but you know nothing about the whole process of a child, so till you experience it, don't speak to me." Now, I know that obviously making a baby is two sides. However, I mean, Aaron Jones, obviously, he was, in the room with her and in the midst of everything. Has Aaron Jones ever pushed a child out of him? No. Don't really think he knows how that feels. However, I understand where he's coming from on this side, where Kelsey Plum, I looked it up, I didn't say that she had any children, so it doesn't seem like she has ever experienced childbirth before. So him as the father of now a child, so congrats to him, has more of a first-hand experience. So I understand where he's coming from, and a lot of people came to his side like, hey, you don't need to explain yourself, blah, 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 like, congratulations on having your kid. And obviously his girlfriend is the one that posted the picture, so if she was okay with him playing video games while she was in labor with their child, that's her prerogative. She can do that. That's totally fine. I mean, it's kind of funny, but personally, if I was in that situation, I would not allow the father of my child to be playing video games while I'm in excruciating pain. But that's just me. But if she wanted him to be, maybe it's relaxing to him. Maybe it helped her. Maybe him being out of the way was better for her, which is totally fine. So again, a lot of different sides here, a lot of different opinions. But again, if she was in labor and she wanted him to be playing video games and that's what he did, then he was just listening to what she wanted, which is great, which is a supportive person, I guess. But either way, it seems that things were unproblematic. If the picture was never posted, obviously nobody would have any sort of opinion towards him. But with it out of context, I think it definitely should have been said like, hey, Aaron Jones, here he is, haha, here's a funny picture of him playing video games while his girlfriend is in labor. And it even said, like, obviously, like, her photo credits to her Twitter, but maybe people didn't know that she was the mother. Also, her Twitter is private, because I tried to do a little bit of digging, but her Twitter is private. I don't know if it was private before this. I don't know if she became private afterwards. Either way, we could not see her tweets unless we followed her, and I don't think that she would have accepted my requests, to be quite honest with you. So, but either way, the tea here is that a lot of people had a lot of opinions to say. Also, Kelsey Plum's tweet of her saying trash has now been deleted. So maybe she rescinded it after he explained the whole situation. It's obviously other people's business. But when they are, professional football players, their business becomes our business, and tea time is where we expose the business. And yeah, so that's what happened with that whole situation. Again, I'm not gonna lie to you. At first I was like, oh, Aaron, come on, man, what are you doing? Also, the fact that I just almost knocked my water bottle over. The fact that he went out of his way, brought his entire console and a TV and the headphones and the controller to the hospital and set it up. The idea of that is actually so funny to me. That this woman walks in, pregnant, in labor, and she's like, hey, I need to give birth to this kid, and also my boyfriend's gotta set up his PS4 while I'm in labor, so he has something to do. The idea of that whole situation unfolding is so funny to me. I think that that's so funny. But anyway, so that's the tea for this week. Our next segment is a segment we actually haven't done in a while, and I've been neglecting it, but we're going to go back to it. And it's our Let's Talk About It segment. And this week, we are going to talk about NBA bubble rings. If you don't know what an NBA bubble ring is, I'm going to explain it to you. So, in the midst of COVID pandemic happening, the NBA is, obviously, like many of you know, taking place inside of a bubble, basically, down in Orlando, Florida, in Disney. And the NBA bubble ring, I saw it a few weeks ago. I had seen the article about it, and I didn't know if it was actually going to be put in place or not, or if it was just a suggestion, but it seems that the bubble ring is going to be a thing. Now, the bubble ring is supposed to be not preventive, but you wear it, and it's supposed to kind of flag possible COVID symptoms a few days before you would actually start exhibiting symptoms. So it keeps track of your heart rate, keeps track of your temperature, your respiratory rate, and you check it. I'm sure it's connected to an app or something on your phone in which you can look and see, and if there seems something irregular happening with any of those things, you can let somebody know, and then maybe expedite a testing instead of something else, instead of waiting maybe a couple more days till the next testing cycle happens, because I think they're going to be getting tested almost every 3 days. So this ring is supposed to help these players, and you don't have to wear it. They're not forcing you to wear it. They ordered about 2,000, maybe a little bit more, and it doesn't say who's going to be wearing them, but it seems to be an option for players to wear. So again, like I said, it's going to just kind of help with flagging down symptoms before you exhibit them, or it's possible that you might get like very, very minor symptoms and not even know that you have it, and then there's that whole quote-unquote silent spread of COVID-19. So that is like one of the big things with this whole pandemic is that, you could be asymptomatic, or you can have these types of little symptoms and you just don't even realize it, and then you go out and whatever. So especially now that a lot of things are opening up again, more people are outside, more people are in the hustle and bustle of everything, they can use this to test, make sure that everything is okay. With everybody being in one place, it's going to be very beneficial for that. And before you say, well, okay, the NBA has access to this, like, what about everybody else? And obviously, it's going to be something that's a little expensive, but it is available to the general public, I found out. It's about $300, so it's not like, you pull money out of your pocket and say, like, oh, yeah, I'll buy one of those rings so that I can know when I'm going to get corona or not. That's, obviously, it's a little bit more of an investment, but it is available to the general public, which I was not aware of. So that's pretty cool. This whole ring situation has not been something that has been created because of the pandemic. These Aura rings have actually been around for quite some time, and they have been used by athletes actually for keeping track of their sleep patterns. And obviously, as an athlete, you have to be in the best shape of your life, and sleeping is very important for that, because you have to make sure that you get enough rest, and you don't want to get too little rest or too much rest. You want to make sure that you enter your REM sleep or whatever. I'm not a doctor, I'm not entirely sure, but Kevin Love has said that this is something he's been using for an extremely long time, and it's not something, like, he doesn't really go anywhere without it, so it's not a new thing. But the benefit to it is that they did realize that it was something that could track these different things that could be preventative for COVID-19. It's not a cure for COVID-19. It's not something just for athletes that the general public can't get. And also for these NBA players, that it's going to obviously constantly be tracking their heart rate and their temperature and all that. That is very personal information. There's been a health policy put in place by the NBA that the information gathered by this ring is completely private and cannot be distributed to other teams, because, like, maybe someone's contract gets changed because they're like, oh, well, your respiratory rate is da-da-da-da-da-da, so we shouldn't offer you as much money, and so on and so forth. So that information has been told, that they told the NBA players it's going to be completely private, not anything like that's readily available to anybody. So it's I think that is an important part of that. So the NBA bubble ring is very interesting. Would I get it? Maybe, but not for $300. I'm not going to drop $300 for a ring when I can use preventive measures such as wearing a mask and stuff. But that's also because I'm in my house and I'm making sure that I limit my contact with people, and I don't need that. But for these athletes, and I wonder why they're just using it for the NBA, but the MLB maybe could look into that, especially because it seems like there's a lot of people in the NBA who have corona right now. I mean, not the NBA, I'm sorry, the MLB. Like, constantly I'm getting notifications saying that different MLB players and staff are testing positive. So I wonder if what the difference is that the NBA is using it and the MLB is not. I don't know. It's interesting, but we talked about it. The NBA bubble ring. So our last thing that we're going to do before our feel-good story and end off our show is our tweet of the week. Our tweet of the week this week is a tweet that I have been sitting on for almost an entire week. I saw it last Thursday. So the day after last week's episode went out, I saw this tweet and I was like, oh my god, this has got to be our tweet of the week next week, because it is a masterpiece. So the San Francisco 49ers tweeted out a video. The official 49ers account tweeted out a video of a bunch of Saints players ganging up on, I think it's George Kittle, And a face mask penalty is happening in the video, and it's very obvious. And so they posted that video with the caption, "Be a saint, grab a face mask. Hashtag your actions save lives, covid19.ca.gov." And I was like, oh my god, what an exquisite tweet this is. They literally used the Saints doing a face mask penalty to their player. And they said that you can be just like a saint, play on words, grab a face mask. Just absolutely stellar marketing. Really. It really is. I love it. I love it so much. And they even said, here's your website for California to, do whatever you need to do to find out about COVID-19. And I think that is just fantastic. And I saw it and I said, this has got to be our tweet of the week next week. And I couldn't help myself. So it's very, very funny. All right, before we wrap up our show, we do have our feel-good story of the week. And I believe it was last week I did not have a feel-good story to end off the episode. But this week, we have 2 feel-good stories to make up for it. So the first one is the fact that my treasured New York Giants, I'm even wearing my New York Giants t-shirt today. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see. And the New York Giants have made history that for the first time in their 95-year franchise history, they hired the first female full-time scout named Hannah Barrett. And I am just so happy that in this time, gender barriers are being broken down all the time in sports, which is fantastic, and I love it. Being a woman in sports, it's very inspiring to see women doing stuff like this. And it's not just, being in broadcasting or podcasting or coaching or anything like that. Like, this woman is a full-time scout for the New York Giants. And I think that is just fantastic and wonderful. And congratulations to her. That is fantastic, and I love it. Our second feel-good story of the week this week is just the fact that Usain Bolt, who is an Olympic sprinter, I mean, a lot of people know who Usain Bolt is. His last name is literally Bolt because he is one of the fastest men on this planet, if not the fastest man on the planet. He had a baby back in May, and he just released the first picture of her, as well as her name, which is Olympia Lightning Bolt. Just amazing. The best name ever. I absolutely love it. Fantastic. The fact that her middle name is Lightning and her last name is Bolt and her first name is Olympia because he's an Olympian, and that's just, I love it. I love it so much. So congrats to Usain Bolt and the mother of his child, Olympia Lightning Bolt. And that is our 2 feel-good stories of the week this week, and that is our show for this week. Thank you guys all for tuning in and listening. Don't forget to give a subscribe on YouTube, leave a comment, like the videos, and give the podcast a follow or a subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Pandora, wherever it is that you listen to your podcasts. And give the Twitter a follow, TGWTS Podcast, for updates and such. And I hope you guys all continue to stay safe, wear a mask, wash your hands, disinfect, all that good stuff. And I hope you all have a fun, fantastic, sports-filled day, and I will see you guys all next week. Bye!